Our topics in music. Let's deal with them. Welcome to the Music Pro, where we offer fresh perspective on approaches in the record business to help you draw fresh conclusions as they relate to your own music dealings. I'm Shay Alexander Wright. I know I've been away for a couple of weeks without any new content. It's just been a busy time. But thanks for rocking with me. Thanks for bearing with me. I'm going to do this today, and then I've got a couple of technical videos coming up over the next week too, so stay tuned for that. Just real quick, there are a few things happening in music that are topical right now, and I kind of wanted to just take a minute and speak on some things relative to them, not necessarily those situations or issues themselves. First, a couple of weeks ago, right after the Grammys, Bato put out a really cool video addressing the whole Grammys night, but taking a moment to kind of hit on the Beyonce Cowboy Carter album, winning Album of the Year and Best Country Album. And I'm not really going to get into whether or not the album is country or isn't or whatever. I do have my opinion on it. My 2 cents is I agree with Rick on this 100%. It's not a country album. It's a straight up R&B album with some sort of country, maybe Americana flavors, if you will. It takes way more than a couple of acoustic guitar tracks and some lap steel or pedal steel guitar tracks and a couple of country record loops or samples or whatever. It takes way more than that to qualify something to be country. So anyway, all that to say, because it won the award, I did go back and listen to the album again, actually a couple times, because I wanted to make sure I was hearing what I heard when the album came out. And yeah, that is, it's not country. But what I want to hit on is what Beyonce winning that award for Cowboy Carter actually says in the grand scheme of things. It speaks to appropriation. I know that appropriation has been a really, really big topic when it comes to a lot of Black and brown music being done over the last at least 20 years. Other thing that I want to touch on is authenticity. I think it's really important that no matter what we're doing, we pursue things with a real level of authenticity, even if it is ambiguous. Okay, and I did my last episode was on it was where I broke down a track that I did with Varian. And in that track breakdown, I went over where the genre blending and crossings were happening. So I say, in terms of authenticity, I think every time we pursue music, it should be 100% authentic. It's art. I know a lot of what we do from a number of people is very formalized and calculated. And that's cool. It all has its place, but at the start of the day, it really is art that we're doing. And so either you're gonna go all the way with something or you're not. And even if it's about blending different genres together to create your own style and identity, still the authenticity in that has to be real so that we can feel it. And maybe with that, maybe the authenticity in Cowboy Carter speaks to something socially much bigger than the album itself. Maybe that award was won and earned to speak to how much Black artists have been overlooked in the history of popular music, even in the genres and styles and idioms that we are so associated with. And that's the conversation I'm having. I know on the flip side of that, people could say the same thing about the Black Rock Coalition that happened in the 90s, or I guess in the late 80s through the early to mid 90s, which is interesting because all those artists that were part of the Black Rock Coalition were undeniably, authentically rock, and were doing all kinds of things with the rock, to sort of put their stamps on it, their originality on it. So anyway, that's food for thought. I'd love to hear what you guys think about that album winning, particularly the Best Country Grammy. And authenticity in your own work and other people's works, and what your approaches are to staying true to what something is. And that doesn't mean that you can't go out of bounds with what you're doing. That's not what I'm saying at all. The other thing I want to touch on is there's a Prince documentary coming. Well, it's not coming out. It was, slated to come out later this year under Netflix. Is fantastic. Director was pinned to put this documentary together, and apparently it's actually brilliant. Over 9 hours, or it's 9 hours of it's a 9-hour series, broken up in several parts. And long story short, at the beginning of his venture, he had the approval of the Prince estate to do it, so much so that he had access to the famous vault in Paisley Park, and all the materials in it. He also had access to over 70 subjects to be interviewed, and these are all very close relationships and associations with Prince himself, personally, professionally, and so on. The executorship changed hands inside the Prince estate, and the new executors now are dead set against this documentary actually coming out. And so far they're winning. Like it's not coming out. Now what I'm touching on with this here is an artist like Prince. I think it is important for everyone who is interested in his music to understand the life that all of that music has come from. And the thing about artists is artists are quite often very complicated, very complex. I say this as a producer and an engineer. However, I do consider myself an artist as well. So I say this to say, one of the things that I've always done is paid attention to the personality sitting before me, collaborating with me. I pay attention to that. I not only, creatively and artistically, but personally. I listen to the things that are said to me in conversations about their lives. A lot of times when I'm going over songs with artists, I'm interested in where that came from, where that story, where that tale, where this song is coming from, because I need to dial into that myself in order to get it out on record. It's important to know. And I need to feel, I need to understand. It's part of the reason I work so hard to build a solid rapport with the artists I work with, because I want them to trust me to take them to a place musically and sonically that is beyond their expectations, beyond whatever they've imagined themselves. But I got to get that out of them as well. I got to make sure that musically and sonically, you know, we feel what that song is talking about, what that song is feeling. I hope the estate changes its mind, but here's what I'm getting at. Here's what I'm getting to. When we're working with artists, it's important to know that the reason their expression is important is because other people are looking for things to connect with, to basically deal with their own experience. And the reason a number of artists resonate with people is because they identify their experiences inside of song, you know, and then of course visually, you know, we've had the luxury over the last, 45 years, thanks to MTV, of very instantly being able to connect with the artist visually. And so that presentation is also a conduit to recognizing a shared experience, identifying shared experience between the artist and the listener or the fan or what have you. I'd love to know what you guys' takes are on artists, their experiences, how you get them to put that vulnerability into the recordings, into the tracks. It's a really important thing. You know, I always, when I'm working with artists and the tension, tension starts to build. Not every artist, but some artists. You kind of get going, or you know, they come in with the song, or you're hashing the song out right there, and they come in. They're excited, everything's coming together, song falls into place, and then it's time to record. And then when they record, there's another layer of vulnerability, and the tension gets really thick in the room. And it's kind of like they almost forget that it's like starting over every time. You know, like every time you do a song is the first time that they're recording. And one of the things that I try to do is I try to relax the atmosphere, all while getting them to just stay dialed into that vulnerability. Because that's really where the tension's coming from, is their vulnerability. And, you know, there's a concern as to how they need to behave when they're expressing that on the microphone, because it's so in your ear, and so it's like, oh well, we want that. we want that vulnerability on the record because that's the thing that people are going to feel, but at the same time I got to get you to relax enough to where, you know, you're comfortable to record it, to where, you know, at least we can get through the work, and you're actually putting performances down and not just, you know, throwing things against the wall to see what will stick. So that's that thing. The other hot topic I want to touch on quickly is the Kendrick Lamar Super Bowl 59 halftime show. Outstanding, excellent. I'm not here to talk about the performance as much as I want to take a minute to talk about how remarkable that entire 16 or 13 and a half minutes was. And remind everyone that, look, you know, as artists, we have a responsibility to be provocative. We have the responsibility to make people think about not just what we're doing, but what they're doing. And you know, a lot of times it's why people are connecting with the music that we do in the first place. Kendrick's performance was a clear demonstration of the responsibility we have to exercise expression artistically in a very, very profound way. When things are getting topsy-turvy, musicians and comedians are the ones to put that thing in people's faces and say, okay, this is what's going on, this is what we feel about it, or this is how we feel about it, and this is the suggested or recommended solution. Put it like that. First, it was a great moment for hip hop as a culture. You know, at a time where, look, it was just last year, early last year, Sexy Red was like the flavor of hip hop. And you know, I'm not trashing anything. You know, there's space for everything. But I come to a place, you know, watching hip hop where it's like, I think we've had a little too much of that thing. You know, we've seen all this stuff, you know, for the last 10, 15 years come up, from Nicki Minaj to Cardi B to, you know, all the trap cats that have come out, the drill cats. It's like, you know, it's a real sort of monolithic, like thing that's happened with hip hop in terms of the focus, the commercial focus. So, and of course, for Kendrick to be hot over the last number of years, like at least 10 years, where Kendrick has been in the conversation in a real way. It's just great to see an artist just do his thing and maybe not play the hits, but definitely play some strong songs that have some really strong messages that speak to the time that we're in. And yeah, who knows what's gonna happen tomorrow when it comes to shit. I don't know. Who knows what's gonna happen? Look, I just wanted to get this shit off my chest. And if I'm talking in circles and wasting you guys' time, I apologize. I promise I'm gonna have something extremely concise and technical coming out over the next week in terms of the videos. And yeah, I also got a couple of interviews coming up too with some industry cats that I'm excited to get into, and you know, that's what's up. If you somebody suggested too that I do like a listening derby. So I'm gonna get that together. I'm gonna figure out what day will really work well, where I can go on live and figure out how we can listen to some of you guys' work together live, and I'll sort of A&R, if you will, some ideas or suggestions in an extremely positive way. So stay on the lookout for that to happen like very soon. Also, go to the website shayalexanderwright.com. If you got something, if you're an artist or a producer and you're not mixing your own things, feel free, go to the website, hit me up. Also, if you are, or the rates for mixing are too much, I do consult A&R. So I've, you know, for a half hour or an hour at a time, I will sit with you and go over your tracks and give you some pointers on where you can improve some things if there needs to be improvement in different places. So Remember, ShayAlexanderWright.com. Oh, yes. Also, private lessons in engineering and production. Rates are on the website as well. If you are, whether you're just starting out as a producer engineer or you're advanced and you want a different perspective, a fresh perspective on things, on your approach, hit me up. The rates are there. They're comparable. But yeah, that's what's going on. Everybody, thanks for tuning in again. Until next time, I'm Shay Alexander Wright.